Una Park stood at the main gate of the Galactic Naval Academy and felt her stomach twist. 15 years had passed since she last stood here, but the memory burned as fresh as yesterday. She could still hear the words that changed her life. Humans are too dangerous, too emotional, too violent. They don't belong here. Her hand moved unconsciously to her neck, fingers tracing the burn scar hidden beneath her collar. A gift from the frontier wars. A reminder of the battles that proved everyone wrong about humanity. She took a deep breath and walked through the gate. The academy looked exactly the same. Tall silver towers reaching toward the purple sky of Arcturus Prime. Students from dozens of species walking between buildings, their uniforms marking them as the future of galactic defense. Once Una had worn that uniform. Once she had belonged here. Now she was back, but everything was different. She wore the dark blue uniform of an instructor. Not a student anymore. A teacher. The first human teacher this academy had ever accepted. Her arrival had been announced 3 days ago. The news spread through the academy like fire. Some students were curious. Many were angry. A few were excited. But everyone had an opinion about the human coming to teach them warfare. Una found the instructor's lounge on the 3rd floor of the main building. The room fell silent when she entered. 5 instructors sat around a large table, their conversation stopping mid-sentence. Eyes turned toward her. Some curious, some cold, all measuring. A tall figure stood from the table. Veltar. She recognized him immediately. He had been a junior instructor 15 years ago, one of the voices calling for human expulsion. Now he looked older, his blue skin marked with the silver patterns that showed rank among the Velrathi people. Instructor Park, Velthar said. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were ice. Welcome to the academy. I hope you can control your primitive instincts better than your species did 15 years ago. Una met his gaze without blinking. Instructor Velthar, I hope you've learned something new in 15 years. The galaxy has changed. Perhaps you should too. The temperature in the room dropped. Another instructor coughed. Velthar's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He simply turned and walked away. Una let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. An older woman with green skin approached her. That was bold, she said quietly. Velthar has influence here. Making him an enemy on your first day might not be wise. He was already my enemy, Una replied. 15 years ago he called humans dangerous animals. Nothing I say today will change what he already thinks. That afternoon, Admiral Kira Thex gave Una a tour of the academy. The Admiral was a Thexian, tall and powerful with skin like polished stone. She had personally recruited Una after the frontier wars ended. Your performance during the war changed many minds, Admiral Thex said as they walked through the Tactical Simulation Center. The Battle of Crimson Nebula especially. 40,000 lives saved because of human strategy. That's hard to ignore. But not everyone's mind has changed, Una said. No, the Admiral admitted. Old prejudices die slowly. Some instructors still believe humans are too aggressive for military service. They think your wartime success was luck, not skill. Then I'll prove them wrong again. Admiral Thex smiled. I'm counting on it. But be careful. Some people here don't want you to succeed. They want you to fail so they can say, see? Humans don't belong here. Don't give them that satisfaction. Later, Una walked alone through the residential section of the academy. She found her old dormitory building, the place where she had lived as a student. The door to her old room was unlocked. She stepped inside. The room was different now. New furniture, new decorations, someone else's belongings. But the window looked out on the same view. The training fields where she had learned to fight. The parade ground where she had stood with her human classmates on that terrible day. She remembered the announcement. All human students were being expelled. They had 2 hours to pack their belongings and leave. No explanation, no appeal. Just orders from the Galactic Council. Humans were too dangerous to train. Una had been 19 years old, scared, angry, humiliated. She had worked so hard to be accepted to the academy, and they threw her out like garbage. Some of her friends had cried. Others had raged. Una had stayed silent, her jaw tight, her eyes dry. She promised herself she would prove them wrong someday. And then the frontier wars came. Humanity's chance to show what they could do. The Vex swarm attacked the outer colonies, and the galactic fleet struggled to stop them. They needed every ship, every soldier, every idea, even human ones. Yuna had joined the Terran Defense Force. She rose through the ranks quickly, her academy training giving her an edge over other human officers. At the Battle of Crimson Nebula, she commanded the defense of a refugee convoy. Everyone said it was impossible. The Vex had more ships, more firepower, more time. But Yuna used tactics the Vex didn't expect. Strategies that weren't in any academy textbook. She saved 40,000 civilian lives. After that, things changed. The Galactic Council noticed. Human tactics were working where traditional strategies failed. Maybe humans weren't too dangerous. Maybe they were exactly what the galaxy needed. The evening faculty meeting was tense. Yuna sat at the large conference table with 20 other instructors. They were discussing course assignments for the new semester. When Yuna's name came up, the room got quiet. Advanced tactical theory should go to someone with more experience, one instructor said. He didn't look at Yuna, but everyone knew who he meant. Instructor Park has combat experience, Admiral Thex replied firmly. Real combat, not just simulations. That's valuable. Combat experience from a species that only achieved interstellar flight 50 years ago, Velthar said smoothly. We've been studying warfare for centuries. What can humans teach us? Yuna spoke for the first time. How to win when you're outnumbered. How to survive when everyone says you'll fail. How to adapt when the enemy doesn't follow your textbook. She looked directly at Velthar. How to prove everyone wrong. The meeting ended with Yuna getting her course assignment. Advanced tactical theory 3 times per week. 40 students per class. As she left the conference room, she felt eyes on her back. Some curious, some hopeful, many hostile. That night, alone in her quarters, Yuna received a message. It was from Captain Minho Lee, her old commanding officer from the Frontier Wars. The message was short, only 3 words, but they made her smile. Show them everything. She would. Tomorrow she would face her first class. Tomorrow she would start proving that humans belonged here. Tomorrow the real work began, but tonight she allowed herself a moment of doubt. What if she failed? What if she proved the critics right? What if humans really didn't belong among the stars? She shook her head, banishing the thoughts. She had survived war. She had survived loss. She had survived being thrown out of this academy once already. She could survive teaching here. The next morning, Yuna walked to her classroom early. She wanted to prepare to make sure everything was perfect. But when she opened the door, her stomach dropped. Someone had been there before her. Written across her desk in bright red paint were 4 words, "Primitives go home." Yuna stared at the red paint on her desk. The words seemed to glow in the morning light. Primitives go home. Someone wanted her to know she wasn't welcome. Someone wanted her to quit on her first day. She found a cloth and cleaning solution in the supply closet. She scrubbed the desk herself, not calling maintenance, not reporting it. If she reported every insult, every small act of hatred, she would spend all her time filing complaints. Better to clean it up and move forward. By the time her students arrived, the desk was clean. Yuna stood at the front of the classroom watching them file in. 40 cadets from 12 different species. They were young, most of them around 20 years old. The future warriors of the galaxy. 3 human students sat together in the front row. She recognized the look in their eyes. Hope mixed with fear. They needed her to succeed. If she failed, it proved humans didn't belong here. The weight of that responsibility pressed on her shoulders. One of the humans, a young man with nervous energy, met her eyes. Do-hyun Kang, according to her class list. He gave her a small nod like he was trying to say, "We're counting on you." In the back row, a Karathi student sat with his arms crossed. Jiho Nam. His file said he was talented but arrogant. Right now, he just looked bored, like he had already decided this class would be a waste of time. Yuna didn't introduce herself. She didn't give a speech about her background or her expectations. Instead, she projected an image on the classroom screen. It showed a star system with multiple planets, asteroid fields, and 2 fleets facing each other. "This is a battle that happened during the Frontier Wars," she said. The defending fleet had 30 ships. The attacking fleet had 70. The defenders were protecting a refugee convoy of 200 civilian vessels. According to standard tactical doctrine, this battle was already lost. The defenders should have retreated. She changed the image, showing fleet positions. But the defending commander didn't retreat. Instead, she did something unusual. She divided her small fleet into 3 groups and positioned them in what looked like a terrible defensive formation. Any academy instructor would fail a student for suggesting this strategy. A student raised her hand. Why did the commander do something so stupid? Good question, Yuna said. Let's analyze the battle. I want you to work in groups. Figure out what the defending commander was trying to do. You have 20 minutes. The students split into groups, their voices filling the classroom as they debated. Yuna watched them carefully. Most groups immediately looked for textbook solutions. They tried to fit the strange formation into patterns they had learned. Only one group approached it differently. Do-hyun's group. She heard him say, "Forget the textbook." Why would someone do this? What were they trying to make the enemy think? After 20 minutes, Yuna called them back. Who wants to share their analysis? Ji-ho spoke first, his voice confident. The commander made a mistake. The formation is weak. The attacking fleet would have destroyed them easily. Interesting, Yuna said neutrally. Anyone else? Do-hyun raised his hand hesitantly. Maybe the commander wanted to look weak. Maybe the formation was bait. If the attacking fleet thought they could win easily, they might attack carelessly. Yuna smiled. Exactly. Let me show you what happened. She advanced the simulation showing the battle unfold. The attacking fleet did exactly what Do-hyun predicted. They attacked aggressively, spreading their forces to surround what looked like weak defensive positions. And then the defending fleet did this. The simulation showed the defensive positions suddenly collapsing inward, concentrating their fire on small sections of the attacking fleet. They destroyed enemy ships quickly, then moved to the next target. The attacking fleet spread too thin, couldn't respond effectively. The defenders won, Yuna said quietly. All 200 civilian ships escaped. The defending fleet lost 8 ships. The attacking fleet lost 43. The classroom was silent. Ji-ho looked confused. Other students seemed impressed. Do-hyun was grinning. This battle is called the Battle of Crimson Nebula, Yuna said. The defending commander was me. I commanded those 30 ships. I saved those 40,000 civilian lives. She paused. And every instructor at this academy would have failed me for using that strategy, because it's not in any textbook. Now the silence was different, heavy, thoughtful. Even Ji-ho wasn't smiling anymore. Here's what I want you to learn in this class, Yuna continued. Your enemy won't follow the textbook. They won't fight fair. They won't do what you expect. If you only know textbook tactics, you'll die following textbook solutions to unexpected problems. I'm going to teach you how to think, not just how to follow orders. After class, Do-hyun approached her desk. That was amazing, Instructor Park. I've never heard anyone teach like that before. Thank you, Cadet Kang. She studied his face, seeing the excitement there. How are you doing here? How are the other students treating you? His smile faded slightly. It's fine. Some students are curious about humans, others... He shrugged. Others think we shouldn't be here. But it's fine. I can handle it. If it becomes more than you can handle, tell me. You're not alone here. I know. That's why we were so happy when we heard you were coming. You're proof that humans can succeed here. He hesitated. No pressure or anything, they both laughed, but Yuna felt the weight of his words. She wasn't just an instructor. She was a symbol. If she succeeded, the door opened wider for other humans. If she failed, that door might close forever. That evening, Yuna was working in her office when someone knocked on the door. She looked up to see Velthar standing in the doorway. May I come in? He asked formally. It's your academy, she replied. He entered, his movements precise and controlled. I observed your class today. From the monitoring room. And? You encourage chaos, he said bluntly. You teach students to ignore doctrine, to question authority, to improvise. This is exactly why humans are dangerous. You don't respect order. Yuna set down her pen. I teach students to think. Your doctrine works perfectly until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, soldiers die because they only know one way to fight. Discipline wins wars, not improvisation. Discipline and improvisation together win wars. Discipline alone just gets you predictable results. Sometimes that means predictable defeat. She met his eyes. I won the Battle of Crimson Nebula because I didn't follow your precious doctrine. 40,000 people are alive because I improvised. Velthar's jaw tightened. One battle doesn't prove your methods are superior. It proves you were lucky. Luck? Yuna stood up. I've fought in 15 major engagements. I've commanded operations on 4 different fronts. My ships had the lowest casualty rate in the entire Terran fleet. That's not luck. That's skill. It's human aggression. You fight like animals with no honor, no rules. And you want to teach our students to do the same. Yuna took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. I fight to win. I fight to protect people. If that makes me an animal, then I'm an animal who saves lives. What does your honor do for the people who die following your rigid tactics? Velthar left without another word. Yuna sat back down, her hand shaking slightly. Not from fear, from anger. 15 years had passed and nothing had changed. They still saw humans as animals. Later that night, Yuna received a video message from her sister, Sora. She was serving on a deep space exploration vessel, discovering new systems at the edge of known space. Hey, big sister. Sora's face appeared on the screen, bright and excited. We just mapped the most beautiful nebula. I'm sending you pictures. The colors are amazing. She paused, her expression becoming more serious. How's the academy? Are they treating you okay? Yuna recorded her response, trying to sound positive. It's fine. The students are learning. Some instructors are difficult, but that's expected. She hesitated, then added, Sora, why did you apply to join the exploration fleet instead of trying for the academy? Sora's next message came an hour later. Because I wanted to go where humans are welcome. I know you're fighting to change the academy, and I'm proud of you. But I'm not a fighter like you. I just want to explore the galaxy without constantly proving I deserve to be there. Does that make me a coward? No, Yuna whispered to the empty room. It makes you smart. But she couldn't say that. Because if Sora was smart for avoiding this fight, what did that make Yuna? Someone who couldn't let go? Someone too stubborn to know when to quit? Or someone who understood that some fights were worth fighting, even when they hurt? The simulation chamber was the size of a small warehouse, filled with holographic projectors and movable walls that could create any battlefield scenario. Yuna stood in the control room, watching her students prepare for a basic tactical exercise. It should have been routine, safe, boring even. The exercise was simple. One team would defend a position while another attacked. The weapons fired light pulses that registered hits on the students' armor. No danger, no real ammunition. Just training. Yuna initiated the simulation. The holographic walls appeared, creating a battlefield. Students moved into position. Everything seemed normal. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights flooded the control room. Yuna's display showed words that made her blood run cold. Live ammunition armed. Lethal systems active. Emergency override failed. Everyone stop. Yuna's voice boomed through the speakers. Do not fire your weapons. This is not a drill. Do not move. In the chamber below, 40 students froze. Their training weapons had somehow been replaced with live ordnance. The missiles mounted on the walls weren't firing light pulses anymore. They were armed with real explosives. Yuna's mind raced through possibilities. This shouldn't be possible. The simulation chamber had multiple safety systems. Every weapon was supposed to be checked and double-checked. Someone would have had to bypass every safety protocol. Sabotage. This was deliberate. But understanding why could wait. Right now, she had 40 cadets in a room full of armed weapons. She needed to get them out. Instructor Park, what's happening? Do-hyun's voice came through the communication system. He sounded scared but controlled. System malfunction, Yuna said, keeping her voice steady. I need you to stay exactly where you are. I'm going to get you out. She pulled up the emergency evacuation protocols on her screen. Standard procedure was to open all exits and evacuate in orderly groups. But her screen showed a problem. The main exits were sealed. Another malfunction, or another piece of sabotage. Secondary exits were blocked by holographic walls that had solidified. The emergency override wasn't responding. Whoever planned this had thought it through carefully. Instructor, another voice panicked. My squad is trapped behind a bulkhead. We can't get to the exits. Yuna checked the camera feeds. Chihonam and his squad were indeed trapped. A mechanical door had closed behind them, probably triggered by the same sabotage that armed the weapons. The door was designed to be indestructible, capable of withstanding explosions. The automated system was still running the simulation. In 30 seconds, weapons would start firing automatically. Live weapons. Real explosives. Jiho's squad would be right in the firing line. Yuna accessed the manual control systems. There was a way to open that bulkhead, but it required someone to physically hold the release mechanism. The release was located inside the chamber, right where the weapons would start firing. 20 seconds. She could call for help. Other instructors would come, but they wouldn't arrive in time. The automated firing sequence would begin in seconds. Jiho and his squad would die. Yuna ran. She left the control room and sprinted down the corridor to the chamber's emergency access. Her hands worked the manual override panel. The door opened slowly, too slowly. 10 seconds. She squeezed through the opening before the door was fully open. Inside the chamber, students turned to look at her. She ran toward the bulkhead where Jiho was trapped. 5 seconds. Everyone else run to the emergency access, she shouted. Go now. The students didn't hesitate. They trusted her. They ran. Yuna reached the bulkhead release. It was a physical mechanism, requiring constant pressure to keep the door open. Someone had to hold it while others escaped, and that someone would be standing directly in the blast zone when the weapons fired. She grabbed the release and pulled. The bulkhead groaned and began to open. On the other side, she could see Jiho and his squad. Their eyes widened when they saw her. Go, she ordered. Run! But instructor, Jiho started. That's an order, cadet. Move, they ran. Jiho looked back once, and in that moment Yuna saw something change in his eyes. Understanding, respect, maybe even shame for how he had dismissed her before. The last student cleared the bulkhead. Yuna could let go now. She could run. But if she released the mechanism, the door would close again, trapping anyone who wasn't out yet. She counted to 3, making sure everyone had time. Then she released the mechanism and ran. The weapons fired. She heard the explosions behind her, felt the heat on her back. She dove through the emergency access door as the chamber erupted in fire and shrapnel. Someone pulled her the rest of the way through. The door slammed shut. Alarms were screaming. Students were shouting, but everyone was alive. Yuna sat on the floor, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, not exactly. From adrenaline. From the familiar feeling of combat, of life-or-death decisions. She had thought those days were behind her. Jiho knelt beside her. You saved my life, he said quietly. You almost died to save me. That's the job, Yuna replied. Her voice was steadier than she felt. Instructors protect their students. No, Jiho said. You didn't have to do that. You could have called for help. You could have let us. He couldn't finish the sentence. Yuna met his eyes. I've seen too many people die because someone decided they weren't worth saving. I won't let that happen to my students. Any of them. Even the ones who think humans are primitives. Jiho's face reddened. He looked away. I'm sorry. I was wrong about you. About humans. Admiral Thex arrived 30 minutes later. The chamber was a wreck, destroyed by the explosions. Investigators were already examining the systems, looking for evidence of how the sabotage happened. You saved 40 lives today, the Admiral said, standing with Yuna in the damaged control room. If you hadn't acted so quickly, we would be planning funerals. Someone tried to kill them, Yuna said flatly. This wasn't an accident. No, it wasn't. We found evidence of systematic tampering. Multiple safety systems were disabled. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. The Admiral's expression was grim. They wanted to create a disaster. They wanted to make you look incompetent, or worse, they wanted you to fail to save your students. They wanted to prove humans are dangerous, Yuna said quietly. Yes, and instead, you proved the opposite. You risked your life to save students, including ones who have been openly hostile to you. The Admiral put a hand on Yuna's shoulder. But you've also made powerful enemies. Whoever did this won't stop here. That evening, Velthar came to Yuna's quarters. She almost didn't let him in, but curiosity won. I heard what happened, he said without preamble. You saved those students. Yes. The sabotage was likely done by instructors, he continued. Instructors who oppose human integration. They set up this disaster hoping you would fail. I know, Yuna said. Do you know who? I have suspicions. No proof yet? Velthar met her eyes. What you did today was brave. I won't apologize for my views on humanity, but I acknowledge that you acted with honor. It wasn't much, but from Velthar, it was something. The next day, Yuna's students submitted a formal petition to the Academy administration. They requested official recognition of Instructor Park's actions. Jiho had organized it. All 40 students signed it. Do-hyun brought the news to her office. The petition says you represent what all Academy instructors should be. Not just humans, all instructors. You put students first, even at risk to yourself. Yuna felt something warm in her chest. Not pride exactly. More like hope. Maybe things were changing. Maybe one life-or-death moment at a time, she was proving that humans belonged here. But that night, lying in her quarters, she couldn't sleep. Someone at this academy hated humans enough to kill students just to make a point. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The announcement appeared on every screen in the academy the next morning. The interspecies tactical competition would begin in 3 weeks. Every instructor would lead a team of 5 cadets. The winning team would receive the prestigious Star of Excellence and prove their tactical superiority. Yuna read the announcement and knew exactly what this meant. Everyone would be watching to see if the human instructor could compete. Some hoped she would win. Others hoped she would fail spectacularly. She had to choose 5 cadets from her class. The obvious choice would be her best students, the ones most likely to win. But Yuna had never been one for obvious choices. When she posted her team selection, the other instructors thought she had lost her mind. Dohyun Kang, the human, made sense. But Jiho Nam, the Karathi who had openly disrespected humans, Soren, a cadet from the Miran species who came from a culture of pacifists, a young Velrathi student named Talon, a Thexian named Kira. You picked a team with conflicting tactical doctrines, Velthar said when he saw her list. He had chosen 5 elite veterans for his team. They won't work together effectively. Maybe that's the point, Yuna replied. The betting started immediately. Most bets favored Velthar's team, or one of the other senior instructors. Yuna's team had odds of 20-1 against them. No one believed they could win. The first training session was chaos. Dohyun wanted to use aggressive human tactics. Jiho insisted on the Karathi honor combat formations he had learned as a child. Talon believed in the Velrathi precision strikes. Kira wanted the overwhelming force approach of Thexian warfare. And Surin didn't want to fight at all. Yuna let them argue for 30 minutes. Then she stopped them. "You're all right," she said. "And you're all wrong." "That doesn't make sense," Talon said. "Each of your species has tactical strengths. Humans adapt quickly. Karathi fight with honor and discipline. Velrathi strike with precision. Thexians overwhelm with power. Miran seeks solutions without violence." Yuna looked at each of them. "Our opponents will have one tactical style, one way of thinking. We have 5. That's our advantage." "How is confusion an advantage?" Jiho asked. "Because we'll be unpredictable. We'll adapt to each opponent. Sometimes we'll use Karathi discipline, sometimes human chaos, sometimes Velrathi precision. We'll become whatever we need to be." She smiled. "That's something no other team can do." For the next 3 weeks, Yuna trained them differently than any instructor had trained students before. She taught them human tactics like feints and false retreats. She taught them when honor was strength and when it was weakness. She taught them that sometimes the best way to win was to make the enemy think they were winning. The hardest part was teaching Surin. The Miran cadet struggled with the whole concept of combat training. "My people believe violence is never the answer," Surin said after a particularly difficult session. "These tactics feel cruel." "Understanding violence doesn't mean embracing it," Yuna replied. "The best way to prevent violence is to understand it so completely that you can stop it before it starts." "Your perspective is valuable. You see solutions we miss because we're too focused on fighting." The competition began. 20 instructor teams competed in a single elimination tournament. Each match was a simulated battle with different objectives: rescue missions, defense scenarios, assault operations. Yuna's team won their first match against a Thexian instructor's team. They used what looked like confused, scattered tactics. The Thexian team tried to exploit their apparent disorganization, but it was a trap. The scattered positions were actually perfect for surrounding and overwhelming the enemy. Their second match was against a defensive specialist. Yuna's team adapted again, this time using Velrathi precision strikes to find weak points in the defense. They won decisively. By the 3rd round, other instructors were paying attention. This strange mixed team was actually working. They weren't the strongest or the fastest, but they were unpredictable. And in warfare, unpredictable was dangerous. Velthar's team dominated their matches through pure tactical excellence. Perfect formations, perfect timing, perfect execution. They were the favorites to win the entire competition. When the semifinals were announced, Yuna's team would face Velthar's team. The matchup everyone wanted to see. Human chaos versus Velrathi precision. The old way versus the new. The night before the match, Jiho found Yuna studying old human military battles on her datapad. "Can I ask you something?" He said, "Of course. You've been teaching us human tactics, things that aren't in any academy textbook. Where did humans learn to fight like this?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've had countless wars, countless battles. We learned these tactics by necessity, by desperation, by being outnumbered and outgunned so often that we had to think of new ways to survive." She looked at him. "Our history of violence taught us creativity in warfare. It's not something to be proud of, but it's knowledge we can use to protect people now." The day of the semifinal arrived. The entire academy gathered to watch. The scenario was simple: capture and hold a strategic position. Velthar's team would attack. Yuna's team would defend. Velthar's team executed a perfect textbook assault. They advanced in formation, covering each other, moving with precision. It was beautiful to watch, efficient, deadly. Yuna's team seemed to panic. They broke formation. They scattered. Units ran in different directions. It looked like complete chaos, the audience murmured. Was the human instructor's team falling apart under pressure? Velthar pressed the advantage. His team advanced quickly, surrounding what looked like confused defensive positions. Victory seemed certain. Then Yuna's team sprang the trap. The scattered positions weren't chaos. They were deliberately placed. When Velthar's team advanced into what they thought was weak territory, Yuna's units suddenly regrouped. They attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, focusing fire on the weakest points in Velthar's formation. It was a human tactic called defensive counterattack. Make the enemy think you're retreating in panic, then hit them when they're overextended and vulnerable. Velthar tried to adapt, but his team was trained for precision, not chaos. They didn't know how to respond to an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Within minutes, Velthar's team was surrounded and eliminated. The simulation ended. Yuna's team had won. The audience was silent for a moment. Then students started cheering. Not just human students. Students from every species. They had just watched something new, something different, something that worked. Admiral Thek stood and spoke to the crowd. "What we just witnessed is the future of galactic warfare. Not one species' tactics, but the best of all species working together. Instructor Park has shown us what's possible when we embrace different perspectives instead of fearing them." Velthar approached Yuna after the match. For once, he didn't look angry. He looked thoughtful. "That was not honorable," he said. "No," Yuna agreed. "It wasn't, but it was effective." He paused. "The Vex Swarm doesn't fight with honor. Neither do most of our real enemies. Perhaps," he struggled with the words, "perhaps there is value in learning tactics that aren't honorable but save lives." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't acceptance. But it was acknowledgement. From Velthar, that was progress. That night, Yuna's team celebrated. Dohyun, Jiho, Surin, Talon, and Kira had become more than a team. They had become friends. They had learned from each other in ways that went beyond tactics. "We have one more match," Dohyun said. "The finals. Are you confident we can win?" "I'm confident you can adapt to whatever challenge comes," Yuna replied. "That's better than being confident about winning." But the finals never happened. Because at midnight, alarms began screaming throughout the academy. Real alarms, not training exercises. Emergency lights flooded the corridors. Yuna ran to the command center and saw the display that made her blood run cold. Unidentified ships approaching the academy. Dozens of them. Their signatures matched records from the frontier wars. The Vex Swarm had returned, and they were attacking the academy. They said the interface needed a code. She typed her name and the sky opened 8 months after the opening. Hana was famous and she hated it. Her face was on every news channel. Her name was in every article about the founders. People stopped her in hallways asking for autographs or pictures. Someone had even made merchandise, t-shirts with her face and the slogan "She Opened the Sky" printed underneath. Daehyun had bought one as a joke. Hana had thrown it in the recycling bin, but fame was the least of her problems. The real issue was that she had become the only person who could consistently communicate with the artifacts. Other people could access the basic information now, read the manuals and guides that the founders had left behind. But when complex questions arose, when decisions needed to be made about how to use the technology safely, the artifacts responded best to Hana. It was like they trusted her. And that trust had made her indispensable, which meant she couldn't escape. She stood now in a new laboratory, one built specifically to study the founder's technology. The clean energy device sat in the center of the room, a sphere about the size of a basketball that glowed with soft golden light. According to the founder's documentation, this single device could power a city of 10 million people indefinitely, with zero pollution and no need for fuel. It seemed too good to be true, but all the tests confirmed it worked exactly as advertised. The problem was deciding what to do with it. 37 nations have formally requested copies of the device, Director Yoon said, reading from a tablet. 12 more have made informal inquiries, and 3 have threatened to take it by force if we don't share willingly. Hana closed her eyes and sighed. We've had this conversation 6 times already. The answer hasn't changed. We need to create a global distribution plan that ensures everyone gets access equally. No nation gets priority. No one gets military advantages. That's idealistic, a new voice said. Hana turned to see a woman in a military uniform entering the lab. Colonel Beck, one of the liaison officers assigned to the project. She had been a problem from day one. In the real world, we have to protect our interests. Korea should get first access. We found the artifact. Dr. Kim is Korean. We have rights here. The artifact isn't Korean property, Hana said, keeping her voice level even though she wanted to shout. It's not anyone's property. It's a gift to all of humanity, conditional on us proving we can share it responsibly. So you say, but I don't see any aliens here to enforce that. For all we know, you're misinterpreting their intentions. Maybe they expect the strongest nations to take control and lead. Hana felt her temper snap. Do you think I'm lying? Do you think I made all this up? I think you're a scientist, not a diplomat or a military strategist. You don't understand how the world actually works. Before Hana could respond, Daehyun stepped between them. Colonel Bayek, with respect, Dr. Kim has spent more time studying the founder's intentions than anyone alive. If she says equitable distribution is important, we should listen. Colonel Bayek's expression hardened. And who are you to tell me what to do? You're just an engineer. I'm the engineer who keeps all this equipment running, Daehyun said calmly, and I'm Dr. Kim's colleague, which means I'm asking you politely to leave her alone so she can do her work. For a moment it looked like Colonel Bayek might argue further, but something in Daehyun's expression, usually so friendly and easy, had turned to steel. The colonel turned and left without another word. Hana let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank you. Anytime. Daehyun's usual smile returned, though I think I just made an enemy of the military liaison. Welcome to my world. I make new enemies every day now. It was meant to be a joke, but Daehyun didn't laugh. I'm worried about you, Hana. You're carrying too much. You barely sleep anymore. You skip meals. You look exhausted all the time. I'm fine. You're not fine. Nobody could be fine under this much pressure. Hana wanted to argue, but she was too tired. He was right. She wasn't fine. She was drowning in responsibility, pulled in a dozen directions at once, and everyone seemed to think she had all the answers when she was barely holding herself together. I don't know how to stop, she admitted quietly. If I step back, if I take a break, what happens? The wrong people make the wrong decisions, and humanity fails the test before we even really start. Daehyun moved closer and took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it made Hana realize how much she had missed human contact. She had been so focused on artifacts and aliens and the fate of humanity that she had forgotten she was human too. You're not responsible for all of humanity, Daehyun said gently. You opened a door. That was incredible. But you don't have to drag everyone through it by yourself. It feels like I do. Then let me help. Let Director Yoon help. Let the people who actually care about doing this right help. You don't have to carry this alone. Before Hana could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed on every wall. Director Yoon's voice came over the intercom, tense and urgent. All personnel, we have a security breach. Unknown hostiles in the building. Dr. Kim, get to the secure room immediately. Hana's blood went cold. What's happening? Daehyun was already moving, pulling her toward the exit. We need to go. Now. They ran through corridors filled with panicked scientists and security personnel. Hana could hear shouting in the distance, the sound of weapons being fired. Her mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. Then she remembered the warnings, the messages that had been appearing on various forums and social media. a group calling themselves Terra Pura, Earth Pure. They believed the founders' gifts were a trap, a way to make humanity dependent and weak. They wanted the artifacts destroyed before humanity lost its independence. Hana had thought they were just angry people on the internet, making noise but no real threat. She had been wrong. Daehyun led her to a reinforced door and typed in a security code. The door slid open, revealing a small room with monitors showing security camera feeds from around the facility. Director Yoon was already there along with several security officers. How many? Daehyun asked immediately. At least 20, Director Yoon said grimly. They're well armed and organized. This isn't some random protest. This is a planned attack. One of the monitors showed the main laboratory. Armed figures in black tactical gear were placing devices around the room, moving with military precision. Hana's heart sank as she realized what the devices were. Explosives, she whispered. They're going to blow up the energy device. Not just that, one of the security officers said, pointing to another monitor. They've placed charges throughout the facility. If those go off, they'll destroy everything. All the founders' technology we've been studying, all the research, everything. How long do we have? Director Yoon demanded. Their leader is broadcasting on all frequencies, another officer said, pulling up an audio feed. A distorted voice filled the room, speaking in Korean. Humanity must forge its own path. We cannot accept charity from ghosts. We cannot become slaves to alien technology. In 1 hour, we will destroy this facility and everything in it. This is not a negotiation. This is salvation. The broadcast cut off, leaving silence in the secure room. 1 hour, Director Yoon said. We need to evacuate everyone and call for military support. There isn't time, Hana said, her mind racing. Even if we get everyone out, they'll still destroy all the research, all the technology. Years of work, gone. And more than that, this will be seen as humanity rejecting the founders' gifts. The artifacts might interpret this as us failing the test. What are you suggesting? Daehyun asked, though his expression said he already knew and didn't like it. I need to get to the main laboratory. I need to access the artifact and see if there's a way to stop this. Absolutely not, Director Yoon said immediately. It's too dangerous. Those people are armed and clearly willing to kill. If I don't try, everything we've worked for ends tonight. Terra Pura wins and humanity loses its chance at the stars. Hana, no. Daehyun grabbed her arm. There has to be another way. There isn't. You know there isn't. She met his eyes, seeing fear and worry there, but also understanding. The founders are testing us. This is part of it. Can we overcome our own fear and mistrust? Can we choose growth over destruction? This isn't your responsibility, Daehyun said desperately. Maybe not, but it's my choice. She pulled away gently and turned to Director Yoon. I need access to the maintenance tunnels. They should still be secure. Director Yoon looked like he wanted to refuse, but after a long moment he nodded and pulled up a map on one of the monitors. There's a tunnel that leads directly under the main lab. But Hana, if you're doing this, you're not going alone. He looked at Daehyun, who nodded immediately. I'm going with her. Someone needs to make sure she doesn't do anything stupid. We're all doing something stupid, Hana said, but it's the right kind of stupid. They moved quickly, leaving the secure room and heading for the maintenance access. As they descended into the tunnels below the facility, Hana tried not to think about the explosives waiting above them, or the armed extremists who would kill them if discovered, or the fact that she had no real plan beyond reaching the artifact and hoping it would help.